Today we're going to review QWI investments here on Learn Grow Invest. This is our usual stock review and analysis video. This is where we take you through some of the core areas of a company. So we're going to look at its history, understand a little bit about what they do. We're going to look at their financials and the highlights. So we're going to just look at just a high-level overview of maybe the last 3 to 4 years. I believe the company IPO'd in 2019, if I'm not mistaken. And then we're going to look at their price history, understand how it's been trading for maybe the last 6 to 12 months. Then we'll look into just any news that we can find out about the company. And the goal of this stock review is to help you to understand the company, maybe start a discussion around what we think may be interesting relating to this company. And so this was one of those that was requested by our community members. So I hope you find value in this video. Let's get started.
Learning is the key to successful investing. And who doesn't want to invest in some way?
Here at L.E.A.R.N Grow Invest, we focus on financial education, all with the aim of sharing our knowledge on personal finance, investing, and building wealth. We do this on the foundation of our faith in God.
If a more holistic approach is what you need, check out our Grow Faith-based financial coaching program.
Find out more about us at learngrowinvestclub.com
and follow us on all social media platforms at Learn Grow Invest.
All right, let us pray. Thank you, Lord, for this day and for the ability to produce wealth. We pray, Lord, for knowledge, wisdom, and understanding to be able to make wise investment decisions in Jesus' name. Amen. All right, everyone. Let me mention here, almost forgot, this video is sponsored by JMB Moneyline. So we thank them so much for sponsoring this episode. We're going to be using the Moneyline platform to look at the price history. And so it's definitely a platform. If you're not using JMB Moneyline now, you should definitely check it out. It's quite useful when you're doing the type of analysis that we do here. All right. I'll have to also say as well that anything that I review here is for discussion, education, entertainment, and illustrative purposes only, and it should not be construed as professional financial advice, solicitation, or recommendation to buy or sell QWI or any other securities. I am not, as at the recording of this video, not a licensed financial advisor. All right, so these are the areas that I mentioned already. And so we're just gonna kind of take it through step by step, just to understand a little bit about the company. We will actually look at their website as well. I think there's some information there that is worth sharing. And then, as I said, we'll go through the financials and just see what we can kind of garner about the company and so on, right? So let's go through it. So QWI is a company that's listed on the main market of the JSE since September 2019. It's a subsidiary of Jamaica Teas Group. QWI was incorporated as an investment company in 2018 and acquired the investment portfolio previously owned by KIW International Limited and Jamaica Teas Limited in 2019. All right. The company started with an equity base of approximately 600 million prior to the offer of shares to the public and raised more than $1 billion in new equity. At the end of its financial year in September 2020, QWI had equity of 1.48 billion, right? So their business model primarily involves the holding of tradable securities in the local and overseas market, right? So this you can think of as an opportunity to get exposure to both markets in case that is something that would interest you. And of course, they'll show you what's within that portfolio so you can see whether or not those are companies you're interested in as well. So the company holds stocks listed on the Jamaican and US markets, with Jamaica commanding the majority of the portfolio, in addition to a small number of stocks that are listed on the TTSE. And the largest shareholders in QWI are Jamaica Teas and KIW International. We'll look at the top 10 shareholding in a minute. And we have John Jackson here, chairman, and details about the company is found on their website, QWIinvestments.com. So yeah, I did mention I wanted us to check that out. So let's do that now. We'll get to the price a little later. QWI Investments, I think I have it here. Okay, so the website is down. me try again. Let me see here. Okay. All right. So that's a no-go. All right, let me go back to this here. All right, so it's usually what I like to do is go through the company's website, just kind of present the information as they have it, so that I'm not speaking from, my own, point of view, but showing you what is on the company's website. Since we don't have access to it, we're gonna move on. So what we have here, it says here, an investment committee assisted by brokers, particularly in the US, monitors the markets and make investment decisions on a regular basis based on pertinent information. All the back office functions, including the maintenance of the company's accounting, securities accounting, bank records, payments, etc., are performed by Jamaica Teas, pursuant to an admin management agreement between both companies, right? And this, what you're seeing, I believe, was from their most recent report in terms of their shares held. So we have the Jamaica side and the US side. So we're seeing Access Financial, Caribbean Producers, SOS, Dolphin Cove, Carib Cement, Jamaica Broilers, General Accident, JMMB, Radio Jamaica, and Grace Kennedy. And on the US side, we have Meta, United Rentals, NVIDIA, Boeing, Apple, Alphabet, and so on, right? So this represents their largest shareholdings for both, Jamaica and the US. And we'll talk about the performance a little later. Here we have their net asset value. So this is to be benchmarked as to what is considered its fair value, in simple terms. So this is published daily. Well, the last time I checked, it used to be daily on the JSE. And so what you're seeing is how that has trended since this is March 2022 to April 2023. And of course, you can get the data to go as far back as you want to, but it's something that I remember when QWI just came out, the NAV was published almost every day, because one of the things that was spoken about a lot is the fact that it wasn't trading close to its NAV or in relation to its NAV. And we'll talk about the current price now as it relates to that a little bit later. Okay. Here we have the top 10 shareholders, and they did mention that Jamaica Teas and KIW would represent the largest. So you see that's about 44% between those two. Then you have MJE being third largest, then Claudine Murphy. Typically here we just mention persons who we know. So there's the DBJ Pension Fund. There's, some persons may know David Stevens, NCB, and Barita Investment Limited, right? So this represents the top 10 and stands at about 57% of the overall shareholding as at this point, or as at the last report. All right, so let's take a look at their financial history. Now, what I'll do is go through the most recent report on the JSE as well. So what I'll show first are just the highlights, and then just some graphs that I pulled out that will give us, an idea of how things have been trending for the company. And then we look at the most recent financials to understand where things are, right? Or I may do it in the reverse. So let's probably look at the financials first and then take it from there, right? Let's do that. All right, so as I was saying, you see the net asset value being reported. It seems to be now a weekly thing. I remember it was almost daily. I don't remember if it was in fact daily, but I remember it coming out almost daily. But it seems to be a weekly publishing of it now, which works, I think. All right, so this is Q2 financials. All right, so this is where you could see the top 10 director shareholdings, manager shareholdings. We're interested in the report. So let me zoom in here. All right. All right, so it's saying here that the portfolio performed better in Q2 compared to the first, with significantly reduced losses as conditions improved in the US, right? So based on their shareholding being US and Jamaica, performance in both markets will impact how their returns are based on the portfolio that they're holding. So it's worth noting that while there is focus on potential action by the US Fed, market rates softened in the US while rates remain elevated in Jamaica and are just showing signs of softening since late March. The net asset value increased marginally, resulting from a net profit of 5.8 million, right? This larger reflects the substantial position that QWI has in companies listed in JSE rather than overseas. The Jamaican market, as reflected in the JSE Combined Index, declined 4.4% in the quarter and 6.3% for the 6 months, right? So it's just giving you the context as to the performance of the market. These declines were offset in part by gains in their overseas portfolio, totaling almost 24% for the half year, right? Their local investments produced 54 million of realized and unrealized losses in the quarter. These losses were totally offset by the 55 million in unrealized gains by the overseas portfolio, right? So that's that balance that they have to strike here between operating in both markets, where one market is performing well and those losses may be compromised by the other market, right? So the NAV of the company shares remain unchanged at $1.22 at the end of March 2023, which is better than the 4.4% decline in the JSE Combined Index for the quarter. And their participation in the JSE main market, junior market, the US and Trinidad market is a differentiating feature of its investment style and allows the company to engage in and benefit from the disparate performances of all the stocks held in its portfolio. All stock markets do not move in the same direction or change at the same rates, which allows them to benefit when one market is rising, when not. It's essentially diversification, right? That's what it's saying here. So you have to kind of decide when you're holding this company if you want that sort of diversification, and so the benefit you may have here is that when things are going great in all markets, all economies, you're probably going to do really well in terms of seeing this company book profits, increasing profits, etc. But based on what it's saying here is that all stock markets do not move in the same direction or change at the same rates. That is for better or for worse, right? So just look at it that way. So for the market backdrop, market conditions during the quarter locally were generally unfavorable, right? This resulted in unrealized losses on the Jamaican portfolio. And you saw the top 10 companies that were mentioned earlier. Higher interest rates since April 2022 have been the primary cause of falling share prices locally. So they're attributing the interest rates to the fall of share of stock prices. In the USA, interest rates have actually declined in both quarter and the half year. The movements on the indices, which are mostly invested, have been as follows, and it's just giving you that breakdown across the board in relation to its NAV, right? So the JSE index, the junior market, both indexes combined, the S&P 500, MSCI, I don't remember what that means right now, and their NAV, right? So this is now their second quarter results, which we're going to go through now. So unrealized exchange losses total 2 million versus 6.6 of gains a year ago. And their admin cost declined to 24 million. 24.3. It was 24.6 in the previous period. And for this period, they recorded a deferred tax credit of 33 million, right? Let's see year to date. Anthony has a question here. Why does QWI need to buy shares in other companies? That would be an interesting question, Anthony. I don't know, right? That would be good to find out. I definitely think it's a good question, right? Why is NCB and Barita buying shares in QWI? Yeah, that would be interesting. I guess yeah, I don't want to speculate, but I guess you could say based on the exposure it gives, but I'm like, these are both companies that are capable of buying it themselves, buying shares in overseas companies themselves. So I don't know, that is something for somebody from those companies to answer. I couldn't speculate there. All right, so their Jamaican investments produce 159 million of realized and unrealized losses for the half year. These losses were only partially offset by 82 million in unrealized gains. So you're gonna see a trend here, right? It's a balancing between gains on one side and losses on the other. So that's pretty much going to be the theme based on everything that we've seen in the report so far. Right. So the NAV would have declined by 3.9%, which is better than the 6.3% decline on the JSE. Right. So it's pretty much saying that it performed better than the JSE combined index during that period. We spoke about those things already. We looked at the net asset value already. So this is your statement of financial position. They ended the period with equity capital of 1.6 billion, down from 1.73. This decline resulted in the unrealized portfolio losses already mentioned. So during the half year, it gradually increased its holdings of equities listed in the US and TT. Those holdings stand at 3 million US as at March 31st. The portfolio includes positions in several leading information and technology companies, retailers, aerospace, and service companies. So what you pretty much would want to do if you're a QWI shareholder is look at the companies that it has in its top 10, for example, and maybe track the performance of those companies, even on maybe a weekly or monthly basis, because that will give you a good idea as to how QWI itself may perform in terms of profitability, right? Because its performance is essentially based on the performance of those companies that they're holding and the gains they're able to get from them, right? Investments in all stocks amounted to 1.9 billion, with 76% represented held by Jamaican listed stocks. So I guess it would be interesting to find out why they made the decision to have such a lion's share in the Jamaican market, knowing that stock prices have been pretty much declining here since maybe a year plus. Maybe that strategy needs to change, but I guess if they continue holding that position, I guess they're betting that there is a recovery coming sooner than later, and the losses they're booking now might be reversed. But we'll see if they state anything in terms of our outlook. All right. We looked at these already. Outlook, right? So the company's investment committee will actively monitor its investment portfolio. The rate of US inflation is clearly in decline, and the ongoing reduction in the US home price and home rental inflation will soon add to these changes, resulting in even lower rates, right? So the cost of services, which largely affects trending wages, has not yet shown declines seen in the prices of some goods and services. This is one of the source of future market uncertainty. I guess that's why they would not have increased their US position. That might make sense based on what they're stating here. Opinions also differ concerning the extent to which interest rates will follow the downward trend of inflation rates and whether commodity prices will increase again in 2023. So they're waiting to see this, right? In the first half, their US portfolio benefited from the trend towards lower US inflation and interest rates, which together with improved profit performance at several other companies in which they invest resulted in higher share prices in the quarter. Local interest rates began declining in March 2023 as inflation returned to the 6% mark at the top end of the BOJ's target range. More importantly for investors, inflation since November is running at less than 1% per annum. This offers hope that the high rate of inflation might be tamed and allow for easing of interest rates locally before too long, right? So that's pretty much what they're banking on. So they continue to be encouraged by the ongoing buoyancy in visitor arrivals and improved profit results. We remain optimistic about prospects for many of our largest Jamaica shareholdings. So they're pretty much saying here that they're banking that things are going to recover sooner than later. And this is a breakdown of local and overseas investments. So we see decline here in the local one from last year. Overseas portfolio, marginal the same. Cash, 53 million. I think we'll look at that soon. Margin loans would have decreased there, and retained earnings stand at 6 million as opposed to 277 last period. And then EPS, net asset per share, 1.22. In terms of losses and gains, this is what would have gotten the context on earlier. So I prefer to look at year to date. So let's do that. So you're seeing here the losses from investments, negative 77 losses of 77 million here, as opposed to last year. Dividend and interest income, those is 21 million. That would have been an increase from last year. Admin expenses dimension would have been down for the quarter, but it would be down for the half year as well, 38 million as opposed to 56. Interest expense for the half year stands at 18 million. And then net profit or loss. So for the period, for the half year, it's a loss of 60 million. For the quarter is actually 5.8 million. And so you're seeing that basic earning per share is -4 cents, right? Audited cash flows. Don't think we're going to go through this one at this time. Shareholders equity, mentioned that before. Let me see if there's anything here worth noting. Investment activities. I think we covered that enough already in terms of the changes. Okay, overdraft and margin loans. As at 31st of March, the company's assets were charged in the sum of 183 million to BNS. The assets charged comprise listed shares owned by the company and were pledged to secure an overdraft facility of 50 million at an interest rate of 8.5%. 47 million was outstanding under this overdraft facility as at the point of this report. And then assets were charged in the sum of 200 million in favor of Sagicor Bank. Assets were used to secure an overdraft facility of 100 million at interest rate of 8.5%, same as the previous one. And then third, 877 million to VM, and this was at an interest rate of 15.5%. So we're seeing a difference in rate there. So one thing I know for certain that, they all seem to be pledged here, right? So that's what it's saying. So they're showing you the state of that. So they're overdraft and margin loans at those three institutions, right? I covered the rest already. Okay, so let's go to. All right, so since we spoke about, we looked at their statement already, we'll just look at some of these charts quickly. So this is looking at total revenues to net income. Net income is the darker chart, or it's a darker column rather. So we're seeing, for the last, financial year, things started to, for 2020 and for 2020 and the most recent one, we're seeing a negative net income as opposed to a positive like they had in 2019 and 2021. So I guess we'll see how the next period goes. EPS, and it's moved from 2019 till now. Let's look at cash. So their cash position. So I believe when I did this chart, the one over the far right is maybe the last 12 months. So since we're in Q2, this may bring us to 6 months in 2022 and the first 6 months in 2023, if I'm not mistaken. So this is your cash book value per share as at for 2021 and I believe the 12 months. And this is return on assets and return on equity, moving in a similar way. and current ratio versus quick ratio pretty much at the same point. Total debt to equity, we looked at their overdraft and margin facilities. So should give you some context there. So let's look at price history. So we're using JMB Moneyline, as I mentioned before, for our sponsors for this video. So I'm gonna go to check out. All right, so it actually went to a high of 70 cents today. So let's see how maybe has gone for the past 6 months. So started the year around 70. No, that's not started the year. Started the year at 70 cents, and now it's at 67 cents. So I mean, pretty much at the same point it started the year, 3 cents lower, and we've seen it gone as low as 57 cents. So it has recovered from that low, maybe close to 10-15%. Let's see what the volumes look like. In terms of trades for today, total volume was 843,000 units, a low of 58, high of 70. So we're seeing there for the start today. Usually we have a look at the queue as well. In terms of the buy side, 15 orders, largest order being 50,000 at 50 cents. 3 orders at 59 cents, then some at 58, 57, etc. On the sell side, we have 48 orders going all the way up to $2.50. Very interesting, these orders, I believe, from its IPO price. Let's see how far back this graph gives me. I'm trying to remember what the IPO price was. But I believe, if I'm not mistaken, when it came out, it went slightly higher than the IPO price, and then it's been down below IPO since, right? So this is, yeah, so it's been down since, right? And in 2020 would have only made it worse. Also, it would have recovered somewhat. But yes, I think I remember this. It went up to $1.17. Interestingly enough, it could be when maybe the US portfolio side was booming, because if you remember, the US 2020, later the year, the tech companies did really well. So it could be that its performance would have been, good around that time. Maybe that would have resulted in it trading higher. Since then, we've seen the correction in terms of the tech companies in the US, and we saw the notes about the performance on the Jamaica side. Not sure about the TT side, but those two would have been big contributors. Also considering it says 76% of its portfolio is in Jamaica, right? So since that 117 back in February, a couple of years back, it's been trending down to where it is now, right? Let's go here. So what we also like to look as well is week to date, month to date, year to date, etc. So it's down. At the start of the year, we mentioned it started the year at 70 cents. It kind of went there today. So I would have filled in this data, I think, last week, Friday. So it's just a couple days out. 52-week range, though, up to 93 cents. So if you've been holding it for the last 52 weeks, you'd have been down. If you were able to buy it at 55 cents, and you'd be up now. And we see the volume here traded over the last year, shares outstanding, and its market cap. Okay. And as I said, this information is taken from JMB Moneyline, who are sponsors for this video. Dividend announcement, their last dividend announcement was February 2022, and I paid 3.5 cents per share, and I was payable on April 7, 2022. That was their last dividend announced. They have not announced any since. Let me go to confirm based on don't believe I saw any other announcement. Yeah, you're gonna see a lot of net asset value. As I said, I do it once per week, so yeah, I could just, yeah, I don't need to do that. Let me just go here. Corporate actions. Yeah, that's the last one that we saw, right? Same one that we just mentioned, paid April 7th. And this is just a summary of their earnings from 2020 till now. So we're seeing, the performance for them. And so it should be interesting the next few months, I'd say, to see how they perform to close out the year based on the current state of the environment. Now, QWI is one of those companies where I think when it started, of course, nobody foresaw COVID. And so I don't think they would have, expected the first few years to be this turbulent, so to speak, in terms of returns. But I mean, of course, the company would have at least expected and factor in that, they're going to be, creating something that can have value to investors long term. So just to put that into perspective, that if they came out in 2019, then it's really been a rough, 2 to 3 years to start, right? So just bear that in mind. All right, we went through most of these already. And this is just showing the data on the JC. You would have looked at this on Moneyline already. And in terms of news, actually, there was no news to share when I checked it out. Did a search. These were the highlights, really. So earnings low for 2022. That was from last year. Nothing recent that I could find. So nothing really to share that's recent. So we have to take really what we saw in the Q2, as in their outlook, to see how things kind of go for them. Again, if you're a shareholder, you really have to look to see how the companies in their portfolio to perform, to have an idea as to how the stock is likely to perform, and then just decide whether or not how they've invested, the weight in which they've invested it is something that you're comfortable with. Now, if you're not sure, if you're not familiar with those kind of scenarios as to how the portfolio is managed, etc., then I mean, just meaning if you're brand new and you may not be comfortable or understand how it's traded, etc., you either can maybe even visit like maybe their any investor briefing, AGM, etc., that they may have, ask your relevant questions. I don't believe we've reached out to them for an interview. We probably could reach out to John Jackson, see if we can get some insight as to the company. But for now, we don't have any context as to what their strategy is outside of the report that we saw there. I couldn't find any other interviews or information otherwise about the company to add to this review. So yeah, it's just for you consider. So I look at this not necessarily the same as a Select F or a Select MD, because Select F is looking at the financial index. Select MD is looking at the manufacturing index. QWI is not really put together in that way. I think again, just the way in which it was put together, and when it was put together, the expectation that they would have benefited from those diverse markets, but it also means that when times are challenging, it's going to have that performance like we have seen. So likely when things recover, or if any one market, whether Jamaica or US recovers, then that's likely going to spell a recovery for the company. And we've seen just the depressed price for QWI, for Select F, for Select MD as well. Again, they're not necessarily the same, but just the possibly closest that I could think of. Let me look at Select F in terms of price, just for purposes of this conversation. So Select F is 37 cents. Wow, I haven't looked at it in a minute, right? So yeah, if you remember the IPO to where it is now, then January, when did Select have IPO? I need to check Select MD. So we did a review of those companies last year. We probably need to look at them again because it's been more than a year since we've looked at them. Select MD is doing a little bit better, I think, because the manufacturing index have been doing a lot better. Companies like Fosterich, etc., within the last year are showing a lot of growth. But yeah, all of these three companies are a ways down from their IPO prices. Have they paid a dividend recently? Okay, 1 cent there. Wow. Okay, so yeah, none of those companies are performing like they would have, expected. But again, as I said, nobody was planning for a pandemic. So it's really for you to consider as a shareholder whether or not you want to remain in these companies through the storm, or you want to seek maybe better. Well, say better. let me choose my words carefully here. So it's just for you to see whether or not that's something that you want to remain. You want to remain in your portfolio. Of course, you want to speak to your licensed financial advisor. But I would say, I know personally for me that when I looked at how the pandemic started, I kind of looked at the companies that are, as I said, just similar in nature to how these kind of the fund type companies are, or index type companies. Until there's full market recovery, you're not likely to see that or any dramatic increase in the price of those companies. Now, we did see that they had somewhat of a recovery last year. And as I said, that likely would have been based on how the US side of the portfolio would have been performing. But we see those gains being reversed. So, that leaves us where we are now. All right. So hopefully you enjoyed this review. If you did, please be sure to like the video, subscribe to this channel if you're new. We do 2 reviews like this each month. For now, we may change it up in a couple of months, try to maybe do more reviews. I think once per week is what we're trying to get to. If you have any questions about the company or the review, like let's say I missed something and you want to point it out, feel free to leave that in a comment below. You're welcome to join our community groups. We're on Telegram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. Feel free to join those groups, ask your questions, share just anything that you think will help us as an investment community. And yeah, we'll see you. We have a couple of earnings calls this week, so be sure to check those out. If you're already a part of our mailing list, we'll have sent those links to you. But of course, we recommend that you subscribe to YouTube, turn on post notifications so that you'll be informed right away as soon as those videos come out. So we have the RPL earnings call tomorrow, and then Edufocal and Tropical on Thursday. So be sure to check those out. All right. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the very next one.
Learning is the key to successful investing. And who doesn't want to invest in some way?
Here at L.E.A.R.N. Grow Invest, we focus on financial education, all with the aim of sharing our knowledge on personal finance, investing, and building wealth. We do this on the foundation of our faith in God.
If a more holistic approach is what you need, check out our Grow Faith-based financial coaching program.
Find out more about us at learngrowinvestclub.com
and follow us on all social media platforms at L.E.A.R.N